Yo, what is going on, guys? SMH Super Mario Hoops back with some more hoops, and today we are hopping right back into my top 50 list in NBA history. Now today, who do we got? We got Bill Russell. Most people know him for one thing in particular, and we are going to touch on it in this video. But where do I have him ranked on my all-time list? This might surprise you, but I have him ranked at number 13. Now before you get crazy or anything like that, gonna need you guys to hit the like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and also feel free to comment down below what are your thoughts on my thoughts on Bill Russell. But regardless, let's just hop into this and let's get right into Bill Russell. Now, over the course of his NBA career, he was a 12-time NBA All-Star, and this was actually every season from 1958 until 1969. He was also an 11-time member of the All-NBA teams, 3 times on the All-NBA first team in 1959, 1963, and 1965, and then an 8-time member of All-NBA second team in 1958, 1960 until 1962, also 1964, and then the last 3 years in 1966 and 1968. He also was a 5-time most valuable player in the NBA. This includes 1958, the years from 1961 to 1963, and then 1965. He also was all defensive first team once in 1969. Now granted, back then that was kind of when they introduced the all defensive team, so he likely would have a lot more if the award existed back then. He's also a 4-time NBA rebounding leader in 1958, 1959, 1964, and 1965. And the one thing that sticks out most about him is that he's an 11-time NBA champion. This includes every year from 1957 until 1969, except for 1958 and 1967. Now, in terms of his MVP shares, he received votes on 12 different seasons, 11 of which he was a top 5 finisher. Now, granted, back then, they didn't have like these first, second, third, fourth, and fifth place votes that you see today. And then he was a 5-time winner. However, it should be noted that of the 5 league MVPs that Bill Russell won, he was only named to the All-NBA first team for 2 of those seasons. In his place was Bob Pettit and Wilt Chamberlain. Now, you could also say George Yardley or Elgin Baylor, but they were more the power forward spot on the All-NBA first teams that I don't really consider them to be the guys getting more votes over Bill Russell. And actually, in the history of the NBA, there's only been 4 times where the MVP winner was not named to All-NBA first team, and 3 of those came with Bill Russell, the other being Dave Cowens in 1973. But what you need to realize is this: the MVP award back in this time had one weighted focus more than the rest, and that was winning. The Celtics were always one of, if not the best record in the NBA, and over their span of championships, the first person you point to for their success, is Bill Russell, and rightfully so. But he wasn't the only guy, and I'm sure most of you guys have heard. We'll get more into that during the playoffs, though. As for his all-time stat rankings, just to list a few: 21,620 rebounds is second all-time, 22.5 rebounds per game is second all-time, 163.5 win shares is 18th all-time, 133.6 defensive win shares is first all-time, and a .193 win share per 48 rating is 28th in NBA history. Now we can focus more on Bill Russell in the playoffs. Now, statistically speaking, Bill shows a bit of an improvement in the postseason. He ups his per game output slightly, his efficiency, although being a 47% true shooting player for his career in both the regular season and playoffs doesn't say much. His win share per 48 rating does decrease, however, but I'll give him credit for increasing his free throw percentage by 4% as well. Over his career, he averaged 20 points per game in 7 of 29 playoff series, but what is a better stat is his 20 rebounds per game in 27 of 29 playoff series. His lowest for a series was 19, by the way. Now, one of the biggest concerns for Russell is the fact that even as a big man, along with the fact that he was one of the bigger guys of his time, he still shot below 40% in 13 of 29 playoff series, which is roughly half his playoff career. Now, he did have a few above 50% and one over 70% in his career, but it doesn't excuse those 13 critical series as well. And I understand he's a big man, but shooting under 60% from the free throw line in 17 of 29 playoff series isn't that great either. But I want to dive into Bill Russell's most famous argument, one where some would even say makes him as good as the GOAT, and this is his 11 rings. But this is what needs to be addressed. First of all, when people claim Bill is the greatest winner of all time, they leave out a simple element that the miles on his legs were significantly less than that of many all-time greats. And part of this is because of the format of less series to win a ring. but it's also the fact that he didn't show up necessarily when people assume he did, and the fact that his durability for this time was pretty good, but not to the point where you could have said he logged more miles than some all-time greats. Let's take Michael Jordan, for example. Michael Jordan played 82 games on 9 different seasons and played over 80 games in 11 different seasons. Meanwhile, Bill Russell never played 82 games in a season and only managed to play 80 games or more once. And in terms of Bill Russell's 11 championship playoff runs to Jordan's 6, well, what if I told you that MJ won more series and more playoff games over that time? See, people see 11 years and assume the dominance factor was how it's been since, like MJ running through the 90s, or the Lakers and the Spurs running through the 2000s, or LeBron's 8 straight finals in the 2010s, and to put it simply, it isn't. But now we can analyze his 11 final series, because for the guy who is said to always elevate his game in the big stage and is known for winning 11 finals, we need to see how he played in each one. In 1957, the Celtics won 4-3, however, people are misinformed about this season. Not only was Bill not the best player in this series for Boston, but he wasn't their best player in this season. Not only that, but he wasn't even the best rookie this season for the Boston Celtics. That was Tom Heinsohn, the guy that was an all-star over Bill Russell, the guy picked over Bill Russell, and the guy that was the Celtics' best player in the finals, and not Bill Russell. Bill in this series averaged about 13 points, 23 rebounds, on 35.5% from the field, 49% from the free throw line, and under 39% true shooting. And it doesn't even factor in that Bob Pettit outplayed Russell this whole series and the closeout game as well, while Heinsohn put up about 24 and 13 a game on way better efficiency and more consistency. In the 1958 finals, Russell averaged about 14.5, 19 rebounds on 34.7% from the field and 63% from the free throw line. His free throws improved, but not much else. Bill Sharman and Frank Ramsey were the 2 most effective Celtics this series, and to top it off, he actually lost. So he doesn't have a flawless finals record like some people might think. For the second straight year, Bob Pettit outperformed Bill Russell in the finals, and even Cliff Hagan did in this one as well. In the 1959 finals, Boston swept the Lakers, but offensively, Bill Russell was nightmarish. 9 points, 29.5 rebounds, which is great, but 31.6% from the field is not, and neither is below 45% from the free throw line and 36.5% true shooting. Heinsohn, Ramsey, and Sharman all picked up a lot of the slack on that end. And listen, I'm not trying to diminish Bill's defensive impact, but when every single player in this series is more effective offensively this series on both sides, except for arguably Ed Fleming, a career 5-point per game, 35% scorer in the playoffs, then this is a problem because it makes him so wildly one-dimensional. In the 1960 final, this is the first time you could argue he was the best player in his team in a final series, because honestly he was. About 17 points, 25 rebounds, 47% from the field, 68.5% from the free throw line. But other than rebounding, Bob Pettit on the other side was exceeding him in every category with 1 to 2 Hall of Fame teammates. Meanwhile, Bill had 7. In the 1961 finals, Bill averaged 17.5 points, 29 rebounds, 43% from the field, and 45% from the free throw line. He still was not better than Cliff Hagan, who averaged about 30 and 11 on 50 and 90 splits, which is pretty insane for that time. And Bob Pettit as well, while he didn't average 28 rebounds quite like Russell, still averaged about 17 at a much higher volume and efficiency scorer as well. You could even argue Heinsohn was better in this series. 1962 finals are weird. Bill was definitely the best Celtics this series, but Elgin Baylor averaged 41 points per game and 18 rebounds per game on really good efficiency, and Jerry West also put up 31 and 5 on even better efficiency. So I wouldn't go against someone saying Bill was the best in this series, but it's relatively close for an either-or argument. Kind of the same thing in 1963. Sam Jones was great as well. I'm not really going to dive too much into that. Bill was pretty good in that series. In 1964, Bill was easily not the best player, averaging 11 points, 25 rebounds, 38.5% from the field, 48% from the free throw line, and he did not slow down Wilt Chamberlain one bit on the other side, who pretty much did everything better than Bill Russell in this series, as did Sam Jones, the guy who would have been the finals MVP if one existed. Jones was also great in 1965 as the leading scorer on great efficiency, but Russell was much better in this one as it was possibly his best playoff series ever. 18 points per game, 25 rebounds, 70% from the field, and about 58% from the free throw line. Now one could argue argue West was better, but I think it's close. I'd say Russell was still really good this series. In 1966, Bill was still the best Celtic, but West was better on the other side. Bill averaged 23.5 points, 24 rebounds, 54% from the field, and 74% from the free throw line. West was still much more efficient, and believe it or not, averaging double his offensive production and about 7 rebounds per game as a guard as well. And in 1968 and 1969, Bill Russell was completely outplayed by John Havlicek on his own team, and also by Bailey Howell in 1968. When it comes to 1969, Bill was nowhere near the best player on that team, and even Jerry West won the Finals MVP on the losing side, which I think says a lot. In recap, if you haven't figured out by yet, I think Bill Russell is overrated. He is constantly considered the greatest winner of all time and is the only Celtic to get credit for these titles, but he wasn't even always the best player in the finals. At maximum, you could say he was the best Celtic for 6 of 11 finals and the best player in general for 1 of them, and that's being lenient, because you can argue worse than that as well. 7 of his 11 finals were below his regular season shooting splits, and 5 of 11 were below 40% from the field. The crazy thing is, in those 5 series, most of them he didn't even play a formidable big man, and when he did, like Bob Pettit and Wilt, they were not phased. I still think Bill is the greatest defender ever, but people seem to leave out the fact that there were tons of times when Bill Russell was bailed out in his glorified home, the NBA Finals. Offensively, he doesn't scratch the surface of anybody I have ranked above him on this list, and if that's the case, it kills his argument for portability. Just like how even in years as the league MVP, he wasn't even first team All-NBA. And if that's all overblown, then what's his backup case? So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. I don't like hating on Bill Russell because I think that it's stupid, some of the arguments that people use against him, but simply there's a lot of misinformed information when it comes to ranking him. But this video is running long. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I think that's going to do it for me, so I'm out. Peace.